Hey, friends, I want to take this opportunity and invite you to join me and Dr. H.B. Charles Jr. in Israel. We are so excited to be teaming up on this adventure with Land of the Bible Tours in an exciting journey to the land of Jesus. There, for 11 days, December 1 through 11, 2025, you will be able to experience the sights and sounds of Israel, walk where Jesus walked, hear some fascinating historical and archaeological material from professionals. And then at each biblical site, you will hear teaching and preaching from myself and HB. And then in the evenings, when we go back to the hotels for rest, we're looking forward to discussing the Bible and its archaeology and how it impacts our expository preaching. I hope you'll take advantage of this once in a lifetime opportunity to go to Israel with myself, Dr. H.B. Charles Jr., and the wonderful people at Land of the Bible Tours. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions, and you can see the link to the registration in the show notes. May God bless you as you consider this great opportunity. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Church Advance podcast with Bryan Sams. I'm here with my friend Luke. And Luke, as we get started today, I think you have some information about our podcast sponsorship for this episode.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, for the past several episodes, we've been sponsored by Serve HQ. And if you're not sure what Serve HQ is, well, it's simply a online training platform where you can create video content and all other types of features. It's really cool, where you can essentially train your leaders, your volunteers all online. So you don't have to worry about, trying to make sure you coordinate to get everybody there for an in-person, training meeting or session or whatnot, because we all know that trying to schedule that could be super complicated. So you have the on-demand video training and customizable training tracks, automated follow-ups for accountability, easy team management, secure messaging. And it's just really, at the end of the day, it saves you time and reduces stress. So our thanks to Serve HQ for sponsoring this episode. If you want to learn more, you go to www.servehq.church. That's www.servehq.church. And thanks again to them for sponsoring the episode.
Yeah, what an awesome tool. I highly recommend you checking them out. There's a lot of great communication tools, as well as, like Luke said, on demand video training. And boy, I was just talking to my assistant pastor this morning about trying to get some of that training for like children's workers out there, and just trying to hurt them all is not easy. And so I appreciate this platform. It's a tremendous technological platform for churches, used by many major and mega churches, even around the world. So please check them out there, and we appreciate their support of the Church Advance podcast. Well, today I'm excited to jump into our content. Today I want to talk a little bit about just recently, actually about a couple weeks ago, my dad passed away, and and I appreciate all the different feedbacks that I've gotten from so many of you, whether it was on Facebook posts or Messenger. I've got many texts, phone calls, and condolences. And I really appreciate all of you reaching out to me and caring about me and my family. And I thought, we all will ultimately walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We will all walk through it ourselves. We will all, no doubt, walk through it with others. And I just kind of wanted to talk through that experience, talk a little bit about what happened, and how the Lord put it all together for us to be together with my family before my dad passed. I want to talk a little bit about my dad's pastor and the way he ministered to my dad and us. And then also just some things that I admire about my dad, as well as things that he put into place that are really good principles and practices for others. So, shout out to my late dad for his life. He was 75 years old, died on March the 26th, 2025. And so we want to dedicate this episode to him. And so, yeah, Luke, I was really, my dad's been kind of ill for about a year and a half. I mean, he's had some health conditions, but it was really about a year and a half ago, well, almost well, about a year ago, really, that he really started having some heart issues. And then from there, he started having pneumonia issues. And then it just like kept snowballing to where he was almost like in and out of the hospital every couple of weeks. And then, man, here at the end, uh, he was again in the hospital for a couple weeks and he wasn't getting better. And we started wondering how this was going to go. And as it turns out, he wasn't going to get better. There was not going to be a medical path forward. I was talking to my mom about well, actually, I was on my way to Hawaii of all places to preach, and the week before my dad passed, and I took my son out there, and my mom didn't want me to change my schedule or whatever, but I kept daily in contact with them about how he was doing. It was really strange, man. The doctors weren't having any answers, and the more and more me and really my wife started looking into what was going on, I mean, all medical research and all online research was pointing to the fact that this was the end of his life. And so, to make a long story short, on Monday morning, I guess that'd be the 24th of March, I was on the phone with my mom, my uncle, my aunts were with them, and basically the doctor finally came in and said, "Look, we don't really have any more that we can do. The only thing we can do to keep him breathing right is by putting a trach in." And of course, we didn't want that to happen. And he had already, my dad had, when he was still conscious, had already expressed that he didn't want to basically have these just life continuing measurements that would basically have him laying in bed, unable to function normally. And he basically told my mom, "I don't want to live that way." So we knew that the right thing to do was to take him off of those things and not put a trach in and basically put him on hospice. That was on Monday morning. So Monday morning, I'm in Honolulu. Just finished up a meeting preaching there. I wasn't planning on flying back till Tuesday, but I ended up getting our flights changed. And so Monday night was crazy. Left Honolulu, flew to Jacksonville through the night, dropped my son off here in Jacksonville. Then I turned around and 2 hours later flew to West Virginia. I got there Monday night about 5:30. No, I'm sorry, that'd be Tuesday night now. It was a crazy week. Tuesday night about 5:30, and then everybody was exhausted, man, and they all wanted to get some rest. So I then that night, Tuesday night, stayed in my dad's hospital room. And they had told us, here are some things that will happen when we start winding down, we start getting into the final hours. The breathing's going to be such and such. And, you'll start noticing this with his face or his mouth and then certain extremities. And, anyways, at midnight on that Tuesday night, which was first thing Wednesday morning, I'm almost like on a dime, man. All that started happening. So I knew that, we were winding down. Uh, and so, but my dad made it till about 2:30, 2:45 the next afternoon. So on Wednesday afternoon, he passed, and surrounded by the people that loved him, and passed peacefully. And so I'm really, really thankful for several things. I wanted to mention just a few things as I kind of start that I'm thankful for, and then some things that just happened. And if you ever pastors, I don't know about everybody out there, but especially if you're a young pastor, there's going to be some bridges you're going to cross for the first time, and you may not know what to do. I remember the first time I did, this was several years ago, the first time I did a post-death home visit. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. No idea what I was doing. I think I can't remember who wrote the book. There's a book, one of the like guidebooks for pastors. I can't remember whose it was. It was either Kent Hughes or somebody. I mean, there's literally a chapter on visiting a family after somebody passes. I do remember when my father-in-law passed away, his pastor came by, and I was there when he made his home visit on our family. and I learned some things from him. But here I was flying to home as a son, but also as a pastor, thinking about going and visiting, being with my dad and my family in those final hours. You don't you there's no you don't there's no seminary class for this, so you learn by experience what things to do. So I wanted to mention a few things that were just important to us at the end. First of all, I just really am thankful for good, faithful family members that were there and stood by my mom in particular as my dad's final days were. I mean, she's got three sisters and a brother that are still living, and man, they were just there. They were there when my dad died. Those long-term, long-standing relationships are just they're hard to beat. They're there. They've still been there, comforting and encouraging my mom along the way, and I'm really really thankful for that. The second thing that I am really thankful for is just good medical attention. I mean, we're so fortunate to live in the country we live in with the medical advance, even though it was in West Virginia, which is not always up to speed with so much, seemingly like a lot of hillbillies and jokes and stuff. But man, these hospice people were great, and they made death as palatable and as comfortable as maybe it's possible to be. I mean, death is awful and ugly and dark and not just completely unnatural, and it's not what we were designed for. It's what the curse brought in. But what a privilege, man, to be able to put your dad in this case in a situation where he could pass peacefully and it not be just so brutal and awful in that physical sense. He was sedated, he was unconscious, and ultimately just stopped breathing. And that's man, that's so cool. The next thing that comes to my mind that I'm thankful for is um, just good Christian people. They're just man that we were just surrounded by people my dad had been to church with for all these years. And, as a side note, before my dad went unconscious, this was before I left for Hawaii. My wife, I would bless her for this. She encouraged me to write a letter to my dad, because she just had this sense that this was going down. So I did. And I'd recently been preaching at this in the book of Genesis, and there's this phrase in scripture about Abraham and where he lived by the oaks of Mamre or the plains of Mamre. And basically, it's where Abraham was called to. It's where Abraham lived. It's where he stayed. It's where he died. It's nearby where he and Sarah are buried. And so I wrote this letter to my dad and just basically said, Dad, I appreciate the fact that you have maintained faithfulness to I mean, think about this. My dad was married for 53 years. I mean, how many people are, consider that? My mom and dad started going to the church that I got saved in before I was born. So, I mean, they've been in the same church nearly 50 years. My dad never was without work. He never was, he was always a guy that had a good job and took care of his family. And these are just things that are, super commendable. And so I got to write that letter. In fact, my dad received that letter and was conscious. My mom was able to read it to him before I got there, and I'm glad those were the final words that I got to share with him. And I want to just pause here, and my thoughts are probably be a little scattered today, but I was preaching at a youth conference a couple weeks ago, and I this was all fresh, and I just said to them, I explained that letter that I wrote, and I said to them, "Look, time's moving, man. Like if you got something you need to say, if you got something you need to take care of, you got a conversation you need to have, you got some forgiveness you need to give, you got some forgiveness you need to ask for, you need to square something up, you need to take care of something. Just do it, man. Like just do it. Don't live without regrets. Don't live with regrets, I should say. Don't live with something undone that you should have done, or something done that you shouldn't have done. Like say what you need to say. Say I love you. Say I'm sorry. Say I'll miss you. Say to somebody what needs to be said." And there were no issues between me and my dad, but I think I needed to say some things to him. Um, and so I'm glad that I could do that. Um, then I was thinking of at the in these last moments, back to the point of do what do you do? What do you do, and what do you say, and what do you how do you handle these final hours? And there's two things that came to my mind. That one, well, I guess I'd say three. One is just being there. You know, I mean, from 10 o'clock on Tuesday till 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning before anybody else came back. I mean, that was 9 hours of just me being with my dad. I mean, he's unconscious. Not much was said. Every maybe hour or so, I would get back up and read some scripture, play a song, on Spotify, and then just tell him I loved him again, and then then maybe I'd doze off for a nap, and then do the same thing again. But I think that's the first thing that stuck out to me. And somebody had said this in a post that I read, and I kept this in mind. It's this: to abide with another through death is to love in the sacrificial, soul weary way of our Savior. It is to weep with those that weep. It is to bear one another's burden. It is to offer a loved one a tangible reminder, perhaps with a hymn, perhaps with a touch, that God's love endures forever, and that in Christ nothing, not even death, can pry his beloved away from his grasp. So just being there with somebody when they're dying is essentially like a picture, if you will, that Christ is always there, and Christ, nothing will separate you from him. And I thought that was really rich. Um, the second thing, of course, besides just being there, is just I think it's important to, with family or with the person who's dying, read the Bible, man. Read the Bible. And there were a few passages that I read even on repeat to Dad as he was passing away, and I thought I just had, maybe you would want to tuck them away if you ever are confronted with the situation. There were three of the Psalms and one New Testament passage that I read repeatedly. Of course, Psalm 23 is unbeatable in a time of death and loss. Then there was Psalm 40. Psalm 40 is tremendous. No, I'm sorry, Psalm 42, and then Psalm 46, uh, um, which is the "Be still and know that I am God" passage, which is tremendous. Psalm 103 on "Bless the Lord, all my soul" was very good. And then, of course, probably my favorite one to read, and I read multiple times, was Romans 8 there at the end when he talks about death, nor height, nor depth, nor anything can separate us from the love of God, which is Jesus. Yea, in all things we're more than conquerors. That's a great passage to read, um, to somebody who's facing this valley of the shadow of death. And so we read them together. We read them with my mom. We read them with other family members. Of course, we read them with my dad. Um, and they say the doctors say the last thing that really goes with somebody like that is their hearing. So even if they can't respond, they can hear. And so that's why some of those things are very important. And of course, those things are going to be comforting to people who are going to be surviving the situation. So that was really important. And then this is another thing. Some people sing. We don't really have a singing family. So I know when my father-in-law passed away, there was a lot of like guitars and physical singing. Well, and nobody wants to hear me in concert. So we so we, we played a lot of just Spotify music, and I think there were a few songs that were really, really. Now, my dad, and you gotta understand, they're West Virginia people. My mom and dad love Southern gospel music. So I did play some music that I thought was good, but I also wanted to be sure to play some music that would identify with them. I remember some of my earliest memories in my Christian experience was my mom and dad listened to a lot of Gaither vocal band, not Gaither vocal band, good, like Homecoming, Gaither Homecoming stuff. People like Squire Parsons. I don't know if you've ever heard of that name. That's an old. I think he's a West Virginia guy, and he sings two songs in particular that are really good. One's Beulah Land. I'm sure you've heard of Beulah. Um, and so we played that a lot. And then I tell you, a song we played within, I think, about an hour of his dying was "Oh What a Moment" by Squire Parsons. "Oh What a Moment When We See Jesus." And then, of course, another cool thing about that song is the song was so meaningful to my mom that she asked an old friend of my dad's to actually sing it at the funeral. So we played it for dad right before he died, but then also he sang it at the funeral, and it's a great song. You know what I mean? There were other songs that we played. I even made a little playlist on Spotify that I used. Chris Tomlin. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, "It Is Not Death to Die" by Sovereign Grace. "Scars in Heaven." I Can Only Imagine. "Almost Home" by Mercy Me. "It Is Well With My Soul" was another hymn that we played a lot during this time. "Hymn of Heaven" was the and then, "Because He Lives," the old gospel song. You know, look, dude, this is what you need to hear, man. This is what you want to play, and this is what you and by the way, furthermore, I just I just thank God that I'm sitting at the bedside of a Christian dad. I mean, this would be a bad scene, man. This would be a bad scene if you're sitting by the bedside of somebody that's dead, or excuse me, dying, and is not saved. So I obviously want to thank God for um, the fact that He saved my dad, and that this was a whole different experience than it could have been uh, without a saved dad. Let me mention one other thing that was really special about this time, and that is my dad had my dad again was faithful to the same church for almost 50 years. I believe in his time they had four different pastors. I think two of them were relatively long term. Um, Actually, I think three out of the four were relatively long term. Only one short one. But their latest pastor, who was the one there with us, a good friend of mine named Scott Bandy, and so shout out to Scott. I know he listens to the podcast, so he's going to hear this. Um, Scott came by the day dad died, and I want to tell you, man, I want to tell you, to see a pastor, a real pastor, not a hireling, not a charlatan, a real pastor in action. Man, dude, I want to tell you, it was really sweet. And he of course prayed. Um, he leaned in and kissed my dad on the forehead before he left. But there was another song that he played for my dad there, and it was a song called "One More Day." It's out by Sons of Sunday. I gotta tell you, man, that became like the song of the weekend for us. Um, thank God that he gave me one more day, and so that was like thematic and just man, what a celebration, man. Of the loss and all these sort of things. These were the moments, man. These were the moments that led us into this funeral. And then I tell you, man, the other couple other cool things. One was just the sheer going, the actual visitation and funeral. I could not believe the line of people that were there to see, that paid respect to my dad and showed love to my mom. It was out the funeral home, out the door for a good solid hour and a half plus of people, and so encouraging, man. Like what a special uh, tribute. And then at the funeral. Um, I was able to preach, and which was quite an experience. God gave grace, but I shared that idea of the oaks of Mamre. That was the sermon title, and basically talking about faithfulness and Dad's faithfulness and God's faithfulness to him. So, uh, you're gonna, you know, just some application here. Guys, we're all going to face this. If you're a pastor, you're going to sit with people in death. You're going to pray with people who are dying. You don't have to be novel. You don't have to be, seminary trained. What you have to be is available, empathetic, and just um, sharing. certain things that are simple and basic, and then the follow up of it all is helping, like your mother and those or whoever it might be that's left behind, um, certain things that are um, relevant for you to help them with. And my dad really did a good job of setting up, whether it was his pension, whether it was Social Security, other things that he did that really just took care of things from a practical standpoint. From my mom, he had a will intact. He had certain designations within all these um, events in his absence that really took things well. And I've been able to step in as the executor of my dad's estate to help my mom with all these things. So it's just been it was weird, like for me as a son, but also like as a pastor, really was in the help mode the whole time with my mom, and so it was a very unusual experience for me. But overall, man, I thank God for it. I thank God for the experience that he and the way it all went down, and I hope this will help somebody as they navigate even their own parents passing or someone in their church that they might be able to be a blessing to. So, Luke, I didn't really. I was a whole monologue, man. I don't know if you had any thoughts or questions that kind of came up while I was talking there, but
No, no, I was just kind of taking it in and trying to relive that moment with you and that whole situation. I mean, I do remember being in the room when my grandma passed. That's the only time, first and only time I've been in the room as someone, passes from this life to the next. And it's a somber moment, a sober moment. And I so resonated with what you said there. Like, there's no seminary, there's no formal training that can prepare you for that. Either walking through that, as far as it being your loved one, or walking someone else through it. And
mm,
I will echo. There was a lady that was there for my family because she had witnessed it with her own, and she was the one who really served as voluntary hospice, I guess,
mm,
and walked us through it. And her empathy, to this day, I'll never forget it.
yeah.
Laura Montgomery was her name. She probably doesn't listen to the podcast, but shout out to Laura.
Uh,
Or I'm sorry, not Montgomery. It's see, I don't even remember her last name. That's
right.
great. But so
That's
yeah.
the thing. She was just
But no, she was McGlamry, not Montgomery. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, all that to say, it makes it. I do know it makes a big difference when, in the event that you're there at the moment of death as a pastor, or just shortly after. Um, like you said, having the right spirit and being led by the spirit to say and share the
mm,
right thing can and
mm,
make a massive difference in the life of a family, and the comforting them in the hard times. So I'm glad
absolutely.
you had that, Bryan. You kind of were that, but you also had that, like you said, from Scott and the Pastor Scott there, and others.
Mm,
And it's a trying time no matter what. But yeah, we're happy we'll see him again someday. And so yeah,
absolutely.
Bryan, on behalf of the listeners out there and myself, thanks for sharing your experience. It really, like I said, it
Yeah.
was nice to relive that with you there.
Man, I appreciate it. One final word, just as I was mentioning a book that I do recommend for all pastors to have. It's a reference book. It's called The Pastor's Book
Mm,
by Kent Hughes. And I just would highly recommend you guys having that on an iPad, Kindle, or Ready
mm,
Reference. There, that book had that chapter in it that I had referenced in terms of a post-death visit, but it walks you through some of those things you may have never walked through before. I don't know why more seminary school don't have that as an absolute, like, you can't even graduate seminary if you don't have that book. But I will
mm,
say this, beyond a book, I mean, there's no substitute for just the experience. And now man, you talk about changing your perspective on even how you're ministering to other people. That was my own dad. It gave me a little better feeling of how
mm,
somebody else might feel.
yeah.
They're when they lost their dad or their mom or so on and so forth. But weep with those that weep, rejoice with those that rejoice. Be there for people. Love the brothers, love the church. Be a blessing, man. You can't go wrong with that. That stuff goes a long way. And God's people are the best people. And I even thank God for my own church. The men, they were so kind to me, and they've just been so loving. And I mean, I missed 2 Sundays in a row, and they were just, I mean, the response I got from it was nothing but love. And so much love to River City Baptist Church as well. And you know, it's been a tough experience, but I thank the Lord for it, and we trust that we'll be better equipped to minister to people in the valley, man. So, guys, hope this was helpful, and if I can help you, man, maybe you're going through that, maybe you're about to go through that. Please reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you walk through those things. And may God bless you and God be with you. And we'll see you next time.
Wouldn't it be nice to be able to not only see the quality of work of someone you're about to hire, but actually know and get an idea of how it is to work with them? And in other words, not just to see what they do, but how they do it, and if it's a good fit for a working relationship with you. Well, when it comes to working with my team at Increase Creative, that's exactly what we allow you to do at no cost and no risk to you. You could start your first custom design at no cost to you, and you only pay if you actually like the process and you like the final product. You can get started with your first custom design for free at increasecreative.co, and you only pay if you like what you see. So to get started, again, head over to increasecreative.co. That's increasecreative.co. Start your first custom design for free and only pay if you like what you see.